Thanks for tuning in to our partner webinar brought to you by the National Association of Nutrition Professionals. This webinar is part of our NANP's partnership program, bringing you the latest information, education, products, and services from the holistic nutrition and wellness space. These webinars are recorded from a live event with a Q&A session for the attending audience. We hope you find this information useful and consider including our partners and their offerings in your life. Thank you for your interest in our content. This meeting and all materials presented today, including slides, audio, video, and chat content, are protected intellectual property of the hosting organization, the National Association of Nutrition Professionals, NANP. Recording, screen capturing, rebroadcasting, transcribing, or otherwise using any portion of this presentation is strictly prohibited without prior written permission. This includes the use of third-party platforms such as Webinar TV, as well as AI chatbots, AI note-taking tools, or any other artificial intelligence technologies. Unauthorized use of this content may result in immediate removal from the meeting and may subject the offending party to legal action. By remaining in this session, you acknowledge and agree to these terms. Thank you for your cooperation, and we appreciate your respect for our work.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to NANP's webinar, the first one of 2026, and welcome. We are featuring Beam Minerals. I am your host, Tiffany Perry, Development Specialist for the NANP. As a reminder, these webinars are recorded and can be viewed by registrants later in the week. Before we begin, I'd like to share an important notice for all participants. This meeting, along with all materials presented today, including slides, audio, visual, and chat content, is protected intellectual property of the hosting organization, the National Association of Nutrition Professionals, NANP. Recording, screen capturing, rebroadcasting, transcribing, or otherwise using any portion of this presentation is strictly prohibited without prior consent. This includes the use of third-party platforms such as Webinar TV, as well as AI chatbots, AI note-taking tools, or any other artificial intelligence technologies. Unauthorized use of this content may result in immediate removal from the meeting and may be subject to the offending party to legal action. By remaining in this session, you acknowledge and agree to these terms. Thank you for your cooperation, and we appreciate your respect for our work. Let's get started. Today we present the role of minerals in digestive health. Digestion starts in the cells with Amber Lynn Vitale. Amber is the clinical director for Beam Minerals. She is also an Ayurvedic clinical consultant on faculty as an instructor with Wild Rose College of Herbal Medicine. Amber is a contributing instructor for Big Bold Health in their Immunorejuvenation series, and she sits on the advisory board for Natural Practitioner and Taste for Life magazines. Amber has maintained an integrative nutrition practice since 2003 in collaboration with functional medicine healthcare providers. She's passionate about traditional foods, herbs, and regenerative farming, and incorporates these important lifestyle concepts into her nutrition education. In 2020, she and her family of four moved from Brooklyn, New York to a 25-acre farm in Montana where they raise sheep, ducks, chicken, and border collies. This is where Amber now puts theory into practice, and she rejuvenates the soil to improve plant and animal health as well as that of her family and community. Welcome, Amber. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Tiffany, thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for joining. Thanks for watching later, however this goes. It's great. And yes, I'm one of you. So I am an NANP member. I'm board certified in holistic nutrition, and I also went through the exam for certified dietary supplement professional. I passed. I get that too. We want to today look at the crucial mineral cofactors that support optimum digestive health, and especially in the upper GI. They are essential for maintaining balance, restoring balance, maintaining resilience in the gut. And when we finish this session, I really want you to understand why the term replenishment is so important and how that is a foundation for gut health. We don't often think about it that way. And the source, the form, and the delivery of these minerals matters. It makes a real difference as to whether or not they can be used and whether they're being presented in the right ratios. Minerals are supporting our vagus nerve. and vagal tone, which is our rest and digest control center. And minerals are used in a variety of ways at every stage of digestion, from chewing, well, really from raising our fork even to elimination. In Ayurvedic medicine, we'd say like even seeing the food, that is a part of the process, stimulating your desire to eat. And as we all know, modern diets, all of our stressors deplete us of minerals. How can we replenish them and restore balance at the cellular level, ideally? So we're not going to support proper digestion as a whole unless we support the nervous system as a whole. They are intricately interwoven, right? We can all imagine the effects of mineral depletion on the nervous system. We've all experienced it with ourselves, with clients. We know how stress can deplete mineral stores. Well, we have to talk about the vagus nerve. It's also called the wandering nerve. It's the longest of the cranial nerves. Those are the ones that come from your brain, central nervous system, and have their effect peripherally. Its branches actually touch nearly every single digestive organ, thus the tissues that make up that organ and the cells that make up that tissue. And I say that because we really have to remember that it all comes down to what the cells need. The vagus nerve is the one that's the most responsible for gastrointestinal tract functioning and thus nutrition in our cells, right? And our overall health. And then the tricky part, which you may all be aware of, is that this nerve pathway goes back to the brain, right? It goes back to the brain with messages from the great beyond where it has been out in the body. Our healthy vagus nerve and its functioning is very dependent on a multitude of things. And key among those is hydration, because water carries signals like electricity in a wire. Water is a vessel. We talk about H2O and we look at it like this, but I like to flip it. It's a vessel. It likes to carry. But H2O alone doesn't do much. And we humans actually have never, ever in nature could we possibly find H2O alone. It's always carrying other things. And when it carries minerals, it becomes very conductive. Go figure. So the neuron itself has to be well hydrated. The space between the neurons has to be well hydrated and mineralized. There has to be a mineral balance inside the cell and outside the cell. This is true for every single cell in our body. So water has to have what I call mineral stepping stones. I think of like magnesium, zinc, calcium, potassium. These are all kind of macro minerals that we're used to, but without these as stepping stones for nerve conduction, that nerve basically is going to misfire like a bad spark plug. So a junk food diet, what do we think that does for us? A junk food diet is going to give us a poor signal quality. It's bad Wi-Fi. And whole foods, on the other hand, with lots of nutrients, that equals a very good quality signal. Foods also are going to alter our microbiome for better or for worse, and they're going to change the nature of the conversation going back along the vagus nerve branches to the brain. This is always the case. Now, stressors, mental, emotional, poor quality sleep, excessive exercise, even physical stress or labor, like physical labor, all of this is going to block that vagal tone, block that important signal and keep us in a fight, flight, or freeze response. We always forget the freeze. Some people just paralyze, right? What we want from the vagus nerve is the parasympathetic response, that rest and digest and repair and replenish and revitalize. That's what we get from the vagus nerve. So there's constant conversation, as I'm sure you've learned, between the gut and the vagal branches of the vagus nerve. I just love picturing that the road that's going from the brain along the vagus nerve out the branches is like a one-lane country road or even a bicycle path off to the side. But the road that returns to the brain from the gut via these branches of the vagus nerve is like an eight-lane superhighway back to the brain. This is so important to understand because when we have mental stress, whether it's real or perceived or however we perceive it, we can't regulate. This is often the first cause of gut stress. And when we get gut stress and we get inflammation, how there's all of these cells, including microbial cells, complaining and kvetching and basically pitching a fit. And the road going back to the brain is a superhighway, and the brain gets hit with all of this distressed information. There's more mental stress as a result, more inflammation, sending more signals back down to the gut. And it just creates this terrible vicious cycle, which is really hard to interject and disrupt that cycle to restore resilience and balance. Some people just actually, I mean, you can be stressed, then you get gut disruption, then you feel it. You feel uncomfortable. This makes you worry. You stay up at night. You're getting up, going to the bathroom. You don't want to go. So all of this contributes both directly and indirectly to more mental stress, just keeping that going. It's really, it's a mess. It's a mess down there. So again, for proper nerve transmission, we have to have fluid in and between the neurons. The mineral balance that we can achieve is what helps move the water. I know we talk about lymph flow and this kind of thing, and that is important. Moving the body, stretching, it's all important. But mineralization of our fluids and creating the right colloid, creating the right, like a gel in between cells, water moves along that gradient naturally. And water can move in our body through breath. Water can move in our body through just general health and balance. Empty water doesn't move so well. And that's why it doesn't stay empty. It is, H2O is a universal solvent. It wants to associate, it needs a stepping stone. And so it's going to carve it out. It's going to quarry it out of your cells, out of your tissues, out of your organs. Plain H2O is going to make sure that it has something to interact with. So we don't want to put plain H2O in our body for any great length of time. So intracellular, inside the cell, and intercellular, between the cells, those fluids need to have these balanced ratios of minerals and all elements in order to maintain osmotic imbalance of fluid inside and outside the cell. We can't just have random minerals and random amounts of minerals and just dump those in our body and kind of see what happens. It has to be balanced ratios for life to function optimally, because every cell has different receptors for different minerals and different elements that it needs for the organelles to perform the functions that they perform. It's not just like a free-for-all. And if you're flooding a cell with a macro mineral that it doesn't need, like magnesium, and it can't find zinc, and it can't find manganese, and it can't find sulfur, it can't see the forest for the trees, it's not going to be able to bring in to that cell what is actually needed for optimum functioning. First and foremost, we're going to talk a lot about this, the production of ATP, which is the energy currency of the body. So let's get specific now. What minerals are actually needed? Because I'm not going to test you. I've had enough tests already, but it's fascinating and sort of eye-opening to see how many elements of the periodic table are involved just in the digestive process. We'll look at the nervous system and the actual gastrointestinal tract itself, right? So first off, ATP production has to be optimized in a nerve cell. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is energy. All of our mitochondria, all of our bacteria, even some fungi are making this ATP to power up what they need to do or to power up their community. Some of them are very altruistic and they like to give that energy away. So neurons use more ATP, obviously. It's not hard to imagine, than any other type of cell in the body, so much so that there are proposed 2 million mitochondria per neuron, making and optimizing that ATP energy currency every time they go through the citric acid cycle and enter aerobic respiration. So neurons need to enter aerobic respiration. Those cells need oxygen. That's why lack of oxygen to your brain is super, super damaging, in case you didn't know that already. So for that process, we need magnesium, zinc, calcium, potassium. There's all these other trace elements for nerve transmission, other elements for ATP production. We'll get into that in a moment. We need those minerals for ATP production for the gut cells themselves, right? The lining of the gut, the pancreas, the gallbladder, all of these. And if we're looking at the body, a way to think of it is looking at the body as like a neighborhood. And along the street, you have the main power line. But if you haven't set up wiring in all the houses in the neighborhood and connected the wiring in the house to the main power line, we can't turn on lights in the house and we can't do what we need to do in the houses. We can't do what we need as a neighborhood. We're not safe, right? We're not doing what we need to do. So you have to connect the houses to the source of power. And minerals are this wiring. They are the wiring from the source of power, and they carry a current into our cells. Extremely important. We're electrical beings, electromagnetic, really. So the standard American diet, I call it SAD or SNAD, standard North American diet. I don't want to exclude Canada. They are having the same problems as the United States is having. Really, a modern processed food diet is deficient in prebiotic fibers, polyphenols, minerals, beneficial microorganisms, the food for beneficial microorganisms. Polyphenols are antioxidants, and foods rich in antioxidants supply a lot of minerals because antioxidants tend to have flavonoids, and flavonoids lead minerals into cells. They're called ionophores. They do tend to go together, and they supply specific nutrients for both microbial and human cells. Remember, we're not only trying to nourish our own cells. We have a microbiome inside, outside, all over us that helps us live. We cannot live without it. Remember that people who do not have a microbiome do not have an immune system. People who do not have an immune system live in a plastic bubble. Very important to remember that. So in the absence of this nutritive information, this is really crazy. Our gut is going to favor the growth of microorganisms that are really good at searching for nutrients. They're going to dig and dig through the trash of this processed food diet, trying to find their favorite food, trying to find a few nutrients. They need minerals too. They need specific nutrients too. They're just going to keep digging through the trash until they find what they need. Well, digging through the trash on a microbiological analogy means freeing up more calories to your host. This then leads to an energy imbalance, which can lead people to be overweight and obese, create more oxidative waste products for us to detoxify. We find in the populations that are obese and overweight different microorganisms that are really good at digging through your food over and over again, and they free up more calories to you, hosts. And you get literally more calories out of every bite than somebody who does not house those microorganisms. It's a famine adaptation. It's great if you don't have a lot of food. It's not so great when your pantry and your fridge are full. So the standard American diet and a high sugar, high refined carbohydrate diet also depletes minerals when the body needs to rebalance the blood glucose. This process of getting that sugar, that dangerous sugar and dangerous salt out of the bloodstream, is very mineral depleting as well. And stress burns through minerals like a car burns through gas when it has poor combustion, the carburetor isn't properly adjusted, a dirty engine. My truck right now is making a funny smell because the combustion isn't set right. So it's burning more gas, right? Stress does that. Stress uses up ATP. It uses the minerals that are making ATP much faster. Then we need more minerals from our food to make more ATP to support all the stress that we're having. We all know that digestion suffers when we're stressed. Again, it's that vagal tone issue. And when our digestive fire and our digestive capacity suffers, we absorb fewer nutrients. We digest, absorb, and assimilate fewer nutrients. So under stress, and this includes poor sleep, this part of our brain called the amygdala goes wild and starts making really bad choices, like a teenager on spring break in Ibiza. And really, you just start to crave quick energy. You're going to just reach for whatever will get you through. We've all, I'm sure, experienced this, whether you're studying for final exams, studying for your board certification exam, whether you're working overtime, whether you're a parent doing both. I'm right there with you. My daughter has exams right now and I'm working overtime. So all together, trying not to live on coffee, snacks, sugar, salt, right? All of this fast, quick, short-term energy. The digestion tract slows because of the lack of vagal tone, lack of nerve system replenishment. We're exhausted. And then no matter what nutrition we take in, what supplement we're taking, what protein bar, what pills we're throwing down, it doesn't seem to help that much. The body is struggling to make use of those things. As a certified dietary supplement professional, and all the years that went into me getting that certification, I have learned by observation, all of my clients, that supplements work better on people who are better. The healthier we are, the better supplements work, because we have everything available to utilize what we're putting in our body in a concentrated form. It takes a long time to help with supplements when we're super debilitated. Yes, there are superfoods and things that come in and a person immediately feels a bunch of energy, but they've got to then do the work to replenish their cells and get them online, get them on track. So breaking this cycle of debilitation and poor energy starts at a foundational level. And it's really one of the first things that we need to do. And mineral replenishment has to get in the cells, whether the digestive system is functional or not. So the really cool thing about ionic, fulvic, and humic minerals is in a liquid form, they are not digestion dependent in order to enter the bloodstream and get to cells. So it's a hugely useful tool. And that is why this is like the foundation of everything that I educate about nutrition, because we have to have a way to get past a dysfunctional digestive tract in order to get minerals in the cells from the get-go, which is what we're going to talk about as we enter the digestive tract in a moment. So here's where people go wrong a lot. By weight, we definitely use a lot more of the macro minerals on the left here, the magnesium, calcium, potassium, sodium, chloride, all of these are macro minerals because we use more of them in milligram amounts. On the right, though, these small milligram and microgram trace amounts of microminerals, micronutrients, they are absolutely essential. We cannot live well without them, right? It's not only iron that is responsible for oxygen delivery and CO2 takeout in your body in a red blood cell. It's also copper, molybdenum, and zinc that help that red blood cell form properly and function properly and transport oxygen to all of your tissues, right? It's so important to have selenium and manganese and zinc to support endogenous antioxidants you make, superoxide dismutases, your own antioxidant, but you can't make it well without those micro minerals to keep ATP production moving forward. It won't keep going if there's oxidative stress. It makes bio waste. If that waste piles up outside your door, outside of your mitochondria, you're not going to keep making ATP. Copper is important in the mitochondrial membrane. I mean, just to mention a few. So to break this vicious cycle of mineral dysregulation, replenishment is foundational. We're not trying to fix it. We're not trying to supplement the gap with a big macro mineral. We're not just trying to raise the level of one or two things. They are all interrelated. We want to replenish because these minerals have to already be present in the cells before we eat for us to even have a functional digestive tract. When we megadose one mineral or several macro minerals at a time, this creates more imbalances, and then we chase symptoms. Like, for example, megadosing zinc or megadosing magnesium is going to affect iron, digestion, absorption, utilization, metabolism. Then you're tired, then you're short of breath, then you can't climb the stairs, so you get some iron. Then that affects your potassium, then that affects your... So it's just this whack-a-mole of chasing symptoms and chasing depletions and imbalances. Replenishment means all cells, all in the ratios that they need, offering it all the time, just like you going to a beautiful spring and taking a sip of water whenever you need it. So the really important thing to understand about humic and fulvic mineral complexes is that they come from once living plants, a plant-rich freshwater ecosystem. Microbes, in decomposing that, make carbon. They take carbon and oxygen and hydrogen, and they make humic molecules and fulvic molecules and all these side groups. They keep the nitrogen and some amino acid derivatives, and that might be a side group. And then the humic and fulvic are these delivery trucks carrying all the other elements from the periodic table that were present in all of that freshwater ecosystem, predominantly plant life. So it is naturally occurring amounts, naturally occurring ratios, and from tens of millions of years ago, not this modern industrial society. So because of the delivery function of fulvic and humic molecules, minerals are supplied at the cellular level in trace amounts, in usable ratios, and it's practically 100% bioavailable. It's all available to the cell to use or not use, or to go on to the next cell and be used there. All right, so now let's talk about minerals in this digestive process. And again, you're going to need them before you eat. You got to have them present before you eat them. That makes sense to you? I'm going to explain it. So don't worry, we're going to go into it. So it's a chicken or egg, which came first, kind of a scenario. We have to have minerals present in all of our cells before we can even move or digest the food that we're bringing in. We can't even raise a fork. We can't chew without having minerals already present in our muscles and our nerve cells, right? So to break down, to absorb, to assimilate, in order to get more minerals out of our food, we need them already present in the nerve cells, in the muscle cells, in the cells lining the intestinal tract, in the organ cells. And this is why replenishment is really the word that we use at Beam Minerals. It's what we want to focus on. Cellular replenishment, all the cells in every tissue, in every organ, in every system. We are not able to digest our food properly, to get the minerals and other nutrients that we need from it, not the amino acids, not the fatty acids, not the starches and glucose and we won't get that if we don't already have the minerals we need. So how do we begin with somebody who has impaired digestion? How can we begin? Are we starting with the chicken or are we starting with the egg? So I guess Beam Minerals would be the chicken. We can come in with the chicken and then we can lay the egg, I guess, in that analogy. I never answered that. It was kind of a rhetorical question. So let's start in the mouth. Minerals are important in the mouth from the moment we are chewing and making saliva. And a deficiency of minerals in the mouth is going to affect the mucosa, the health of the mucosa, the immune, like secretory IgA, immune secretions in the mouth. Thus, it's going to affect our immune resilience with this first barrier function for toxins that we bring in, things we drink, things that we eat, pathogens. When we were hunter-gatherers, we were getting a lot of pathogens. My dogs are out there on the farm pulling in pathogens all the time. So they have to have a really healthy mouth. It doesn't smell like they have a healthy mouth, but I know by the rest of their health that they are healthy. It just doesn't smell good to me. So when we affect mucosal immunity badly, we're going to contribute to infections at the root level of the teeth, under the gum line, in the gums, in cavities where that process has already started to erode the enamel. When we attract pathogenic microorganisms in the mouth, we initiate dysbiosis in the rest of the digestive tract because we're swallowing their toxic metabolites. If we don't have proper mineral replenishment throughout our entire body, this is actually going to affect the bone, the dental arch, the alignment of our teeth, how we chew, and how we get nutrition. Weston A. Price, he was a dentist. He went to all of these, what am I trying to say? Hunter-gatherer type cultures that haven't had any modern processed food. And he watched what happened when the first generation started to leave and go to the city and come back. They got mineral depletion throughout their entire body, and it affected how their bone and their dentition forms. If you haven't read all that, it should be reading 101 for all of us nutritionists. So mineralization in the teeth is going to affect overall oral health and physical health. Our teeth are a mineral bank. Those minerals help pH balance in the mouth, which helps the enzymes activate. Those minerals are mineral activators for enzymes like amylase. This is not just our human cells. It is the microbes that we want living in our mouth. Now, the ideal pH in the mouth is neutral. We don't really want acid creating, acid loving bacteria in the mouth. If it's acidic in your mouth, not because you ate lemons per se, or not because you ate like acid and alkaline foods, are acid and alkaline because of what microorganisms do with them. And a processed food diet, high sugar, high refined carb, creates a lot of acid in the mouth because of the bacteria that it invites. And the fact that you don't have a lot of minerals there to activate amylase. And if you don't activate amylase, you don't break down your starches. And then those microorganisms just go crazy. They're like, "Ooh," it's like a feast. It's a smorgasbord for them. If then your mouth is more acidic, you're going to decay faster because of furthering demineralization, both because acid breaks down minerals and because your body's trying to take minerals to neutralize the acid. Ultimately, I think it just gives up and is like, this is the state of the mouth. So amylase activation requires calcium for sure, probably magnesium as well. And then we get into swallowing and getting down into the stomach. So here's a little interesting tidbit, something that happens when the mouth ecosystem is off and then when the stomach is off. We talk a lot about the benefits of nitric oxide. We've had vendors at our HealCon that are giving, assays for nitric oxide, supplements for nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is created by microorganisms in our gastrointestinal tract. We also can make it in our blood vessel lining, or it can enter our bloodstream from microorganisms that are making it. How does that happen? This is so crazy. It starts in the mouth and it ends in the stomach acid. So we eat leafy greens and beets, and there's dietary nitrates in these naturally occurring. Our oral bacteria, healthy oral bacteria that are happy in our mouth because we always eat leafy greens and these things, and we're used to having these fibers. We have a good microbiome in the mouth. It's going to turn those dietary nitrates into nitrites. Okay. But that requires the right bacteria, the right microbiome, and the right food. Those nitrites are absorbed through the buccal membranes into the bloodstream and secreted again in the saliva. Wild little system that we have there. And then we swallow these nitrites. They enter the stomach. In the stomach acid, they are converted to nitric oxide and they can just passively float into our bloodstream. Okay. When can we not do this? When we have low stomach acid, when we're taking proton pump inhibitors and other antacids, when we have unhealthy mouth, unhealthy mucosa, unhealthy microbiome, we can't make nitric oxide. So we use up all of our endothelial nitric oxide, fighting off free radicals from all the toxins that are entering our bloodstream. We get stiff, inflexible blood vessel walls, and we initiate this cascade of cardiovascular issues. I always positive this was part of the beneficial effect of the Dean Ornish studies, the Ornish Institute. If you remember that, he took like the 80s or 90s, he took people who were being told they needed a bypass surgery or stents. They had serious cardiovascular issues and put them on a vegan diet. They did yoga, they did meditation, they did, stress management techniques. And they had a very high rate of recovery without needing surgical interventions and even medical, pharmaceutical interventions. But if you take people on the standard American diet, SAD or SNAD, and you put them on a vegan diet that's provided for them, that's very well balanced, and it's full of all of these dietary nitrates, you're going to change the microbiome, you're going to change the conversation, you're going to change the output of nitric oxide into the blood vessels. You're going to change the antioxidants that are available to neutralize free radicals. So 6 months of a vegan diet, and then people go whatever direction is more balanced for them. It literally changed the microbiome, and that changed the conversation. So then we go on into the stomach. And in the stomach, we have a lot of acid, and minerals play a huge role in protecting the stomach lining. Zinc and selenium are very important for antioxidants and enzymes that protect our gut lining from oxidative stress. There's so much acid in the stomach because we need it there. It's to help prevent pathogens from entering our body, right? Really entering our bloodstream. It is also to initiate the digestion, specifically of fats and proteins. Then magnesium is acting as a cofactor for the hydrochloric acid production, the hydrogen potassium ATPase pump. So we need magnesium for that. Obviously, we need potassium for that pump. And we obviously need phosphorus because ATP, triphosphate. This is all in the parietal cells to secrete acid, to have the stomach function the way it's supposed to function, all the things that need to happen. Now, when the stomach empties and we enter the duodenum, right, the upper part of the small intestine, bile is going to ideally shoot into that duodenum. If you have a gallbladder, if you don't have a gallbladder, it's constantly trickling, and it should contain a balance of mineral salts of calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. They are cofactors to the pancreatic enzymes. They are creating the proper pH balance. Do these minerals come from the food that you're eating that just dropped into your small intestine? No, they do not. They have to already be there. You have to already have cellular replenishment of these minerals necessary. If the mineral ratios are off, we're going to see stones, and we're going to see clogged ducts due to fatty acid or fatty deposits because we're not digesting fats well. That clogging and buildup can lead all the way back to the pancreas, and then the enzymes don't come out. You don't digest your food, and you instead digest your pancreas. So at a minimum, when we have mineral depletion and we don't have these minerals for the pancreatic enzymes and such, proteins, carbs, and fats are not going to get broken down properly, not going to be small enough to be further processed by the little tiny microorganisms in the little microvilli of every single cell lining the small intestine. And so we're not going to have good absorption of nutrients, not going to have good replenishment of minerals, and partially digested food is going to enter the large intestine later, where it will putrefy and ferment, and we all know what happens next. So looking at the production of pancreatic enzymes and the release of those enzymes and the activation of those enzymes, the vagus nerve is still happening here. Release of pancreatic enzymes, release of bile is a vagus nerve job, and we have to be in a parasympathetic rest and digest state. So magnesium and zinc, calcium, sodium, potassium, the iron, these are all important minerals that are contributing directly or indirectly. Many of them are helping to create a more alkaline pH right here at the duodenum. Sodium, potassium, chlorine, these are all going to help with fluid balance, right? We have to have the right amount of fluid in there to mix everything up, but not too much to rush it through the system. Magnesium, as you can imagine, supports the smooth muscle activity along with calcium. Calcium contracts, magnesium relaxes, calcium contracts, magnesium relaxes, right? Also, magnesium is a huge enzyme activator, coactivator. Zinc, vital again for the protection of that lining and integrity of the gut lining. Potassium smooths the nerve stimulation of contractions, right? It makes those contractions nice and smooth. So you're not cramping, right? You're not constipating. You're not, overly active in there. So potassium is huge for that. Now, iron is super important for hemoglobin, right? It's the center of the hemoglobin molecule in the red blood cell, carrying oxygen to all the cells of our body, except for the red blood cell, which doesn't use it, just carries it. In the small intestine, your small intestinal cells actually blow little oxygen bubbles into the lumen because many and most of your microorganisms in there are wanting oxygen in order to perform aerobic respiration, just like your mitochondria do, to make more ATP. Aerobic respiration, 38 ATP per cycle. If you do it, everything is there, and you all the minerals and amino acids. Anaerobic respiration, fermentation, you're getting 4 ATP. So we need a lot of energy in there in the small intestine. We need oxygen for the human cells and for the bacterial cells. That red blood cell delivering oxygen doesn't just need iron. It needs that copper, molybdenum, and zinc. I can drive that home so many times. That red blood cell needs all of that. Then you get into the mitochondrial membrane or a bacterial membrane that's performing aerobic respiration. You need copper, manganese, selenium, zinc, molybdenum. It's a war zone in the gut, right? It's a war zone. There's a lot going on in there. And enzymes are proteins, if you remember. And a mineral's normal function is to act as a cofactor for protein production, enzyme or otherwise. The minerals are acting as cofactors in protein production. That's one of the main things they do. Biochemical reactions, either enzymatic reactions making proteins or activating the enzyme that was made, right? So minerals are playing a role in all of that. Common minerals or elements that act as cofactors to enzyme functions that are furthering biochemical process in the bodies are magnesium, manganese, selenium, and molybdenum. And then we have all these proteins that we make, right, for signaling and all different kinds of things, structure. Cobalt, iodine, calcium, phosphorus are very important in the making of non-enzymatic proteins, and things like copper and zinc and iron are involved on both sides, activating enzyme proteins and producing non-enzyme proteins. So hugely, hugely important. I just listed so many elements from the periodic table that are important in your body. So here's another really wild little tidbit of information. Not only nitric oxide production will affect your blood pressure. In other words, there's another way that cardiovascular health is affected by a poor microbiome that a lot of people didn't know about. I originally thought that a high salt diet, high sugar intake affects blood pressure immediately just because of osmotic imbalances and your body's trying to regulate by putting more water in the bloodstream, and then you feel it, right? But somebody who has stiff vessel walls feels it more. This is how I used to view it. And then I started to learn about how the microbiome actually, and their postbiotics actually damage our blood vessels. And it's really wild. If we have a dysbiotic, more pathogens than good bacteria, duodenum, the first part of the small intestine, this will lead to impaired bile acid metabolism. And in our bile is cholesterol that needs to be, recycled and shined up and polished, and oxidative stress that needs to get, sent up the highway. Or no, we just want it out. We don't want it up the highway. We don't want it in the brain. And so when this is all happening, this dysbiosis, right, where the bile enters into the duodenum and we're still really close to the liver, this damaging compound that you may have heard of, TMAO, trimethylamine oxidase, starts to increase as a result of changes in the microbiome. Now, a high salt diet will totally alter the microbiome. You will not have the same species. You won't have as many of the good ones. There's a lack of fiber usually, and you have a lack of short-chain fatty acid production, which is so, so, so important going into the bloodstream, into the brain and other places. And this TMAO toxin enters the bloodstream through the liver, which is sitting on all of your blood vessels, right? They're all running through the liver. And it starts literally just slashing up your blood vessels and endothelial lining. So it's damaging the blood vessels. It's creating scratches. Those then scab up with immune system signaling. Then they start to attract plaque, and you can get stiff blood vessels, damaged blood vessels, scabby blood vessels, plaquing, blockage, and all of these cardiovascular issues that present ultimately started potentially with a messed up microbiome, which can happen due to excess salt and excess sugar in the diet. This can also happen with salty electrolyte powders, because who drinks seawater? We don't. We are freshwater creatures. We can't drink from an ocean and live. So this whole relationship between salts, the gut microbiome, TMAO production, and blood vessel linings and nitric that uses up all your nitric oxide too is ongoing. These studies are ongoing, and they're quite fascinating. All right. So now in order to move that food along and out the body, we come back to the neurons and the vagus nerve and peristaltic action. When we mess up the digestive system with pathogens, toxic foods that feed pathogens, that we understand, like inflammation in the gut directly. But even on a perfect diet for you, if you have mental, emotional stress, excessive physical stress, they actually induce stress markers in people by over exercising them to do studies. That's one of the ways of doing it instead of putting some kind of a chemical in there. So stressor can be nutrition, known or unknown toxins, pathogens, emotions, thoughts, lifestyle, excess exercise, perspective, right? And all of this will cause inflammation in the gut as well, right? I think that is because digestive health is also vagus nerve health. We have to look at them together. And so peristaltic action is this churning and forward moving action. Smooth muscles do it in the linings of stomach, esophagus, stomach, intestines to get food absorbed, digested, absorbed, and to move the waste along and out of the body. If the vagus nerve is not healthy, not properly toned, we don't have these proper parasympathetic activities that lead us to rest, to digest, to secrete all the things that we need to secrete, and we lose immune health, we lose resilience, we lose absorption of crucial nutrients, including our minerals. So the vagus nerve and the vagal tone is literally signaling both for peristaltic action, for the release of those pancreatic enzymes, the gallbladder, and we need calcium and magnesium and potassium, obviously, for all of this peristaltic action. And smooth peristaltic action is preventing constipation, it's preventing cramps. It's also preventing diarrhea, because if we have too rapid of peristaltic action, we have too short a transit time, we don't get all the water out, and we have loose stools. But again, I'm going to reiterate, in order to have proper peristaltic action, we have to have oxygen to the neurons. We have to have oxygen to the intestinal cells. So we're back again to ATP production, oxygen delivery. And to make all of this happen, just so that things are moving through your gut and getting digested, absorbed, and assimilated, and pancreatic enzymes and bile and everything is coming into the duodenum. Iron, copper, molybdenum, zinc, manganese, selenium, sulfur, potassium, sodium, phosphorus, chlorine, and then a few other ones that just kind of, help things keep going. Without these trace elements, without amino acid derivatives that help with signaling, without water in the right place, in the right amount, digestion just doesn't happen well. Instead, what we have is like an old concrete septic tank like I had when I moved here on the farm, or a cesspool like you see in old farms. They just had a hole and everything just kind of hung out there. We know what that smells like. We know what that feels like. This peristaltic action is crucial to move things from the small intestine into the large intestine, colon. And in the colon is where water is recycled, comes out of that, and crucial electrolytes are hopefully pulled out of it. If it's moving through at the right rate, we get all the water and all the electrolytes back into our bloodstream. If we have watery stool, we're losing hydration and minerals. If we have constipation, we don't have that proper play of neuronal signaling to make peristaltic action happen appropriately. So this all comes back to mineral replenishment, to hydration. Not all minerals are created equal. The ratios matter. The form, rock, shell, bone, minerals require digestion. And in people with impaired digestion, it's very hard to get anything out of them. It's already hard even in a healthy system because they're just not in the form that the body uses them if we interact with food. Megadosing is going to create imbalances. We're going to start chasing symptoms like whack-a-mole at the fair. And low quality supplements might either pass through without being absorbed and cause an osmotic imbalance and we lose water, like magnesium citrate. Magnesium citrate is not to get magnesium into your system. It is to get water in your gut and flush out, right? And then highly isolated and absorbable things like a lot of electrolyte powders actually then create osmotic imbalances outside of the cells and create like a cloud where they cannot actually get the minerals that they need for their proper functioning. Plant-derived ionic minerals, humic and fulvic mineral complexes, are nature's delivery system. They ensure that the minerals enter the cell directly and that there isn't an overabundance of any one so that the receptors can find exactly what they need, what the organelle inside the cell is demanding for proper function. Ecosystems thrive on balance. How many of you have added too much fertilizer or too many minerals or nutrients to your garden or to your lawn, or dumped a bunch of minerals or fertilizer on your lawn and not watered it appropriately and it burns? This happens in our gut. There's studies that show burned locuses of our intestinal tract, of our stomach, where the osmotic balance and the salt balance is off. And then I think the biggest thing, would any of us water our garden with seawater? No, we would not. So this is why a high salt diet and high salt beverages are damaging to your freshwater ecosystem. So important to remember. So I hope we covered all the key takeaways. I hope you really followed that. And, I just kind of want to wrap it up with the idea that minerals are how our body communicates. Not just minerals, but all of these micronutrients that are so important. Minerals are a language our body uses to communicate. Amino acids, polyphenols. This is why food is information. Food carries mineral packets of information, amino acid signals of information, right? Our body uses these. Our cells and the mitochondria in our cells need minerals and amino acids in order to function, in order to do what they're supposed to do, in order to communicate. So when you restore balance to your ecosystem of cells, you restore clarity of communication at the physical level, at the mental level, at the nervous system level, fundamentally at the cellular level. Replenished cells can do the job that they're programmed genetically to do. Proper mineral ratios help cells help themselves. That's my mantra. Help yourselves, help themselves. Kind of hard to say. It's like, yeah. But I think we all can pause and notice how stress, diet, hydration all affect our body and throw it out of balance. And if you just think about those little mineral stepping stones all the time, and whether they're in your water, whether they're pulling hydration through your body and into your cells, how your food stress, your environmental stress, your emotional, mental, even physical stress, overdoing it, heavy physical labor, all of this can affect your digestive health by affecting your nervous system health by depleting you at a cellular level. If we can replenish minerals at the cellular level, this is really the first and easiest step with our clients, because especially with a fulvic humic ionic mineral complex, in a liquid, it doesn't require digestion. We're just taking that out of the equation, and people can get these minerals to all the cells. We need it in the neurons, right? We need it in the muscle cells. We need it in other nerve cells in our body. We need it in the parietal cells. We need it in the pancreatic cells and the intestinal lining cells and the endothelial lining, right? Then all our other interventions will be more successful because, again, if the cells are functioning properly, they can better use the other interventions that we might give them. If we need to come in with herbs, if we need to come in with other complex supplements, if we need to change their diet, change their macro ratios, they are going to respond to it much better if they have all the mineral cofactors for every cell to function as it is programmed to do. All right. So again, I'm the clinical director for Beam Minerals. Our primary products are these liquids that are ionic, fulvic and humic mineral complexes, really from ancient plants. We are not designing the ratio. Nature does that by plants that function optimally and thrive and grow and create an enormous ecosystem of freshwater plants millions and millions of years ago. It creates a rock, fossilized, crystallized layer that we extract into ionic form in water. And then we don't have to worry about your digestive system to get your cells replenished. I think this is going to be available again, but here you can order a set, the 32-ounce Electrolyze and MicroBoost at 20% off. So you can scan that code or enter this into your browser. Or your other option, that's if you want to just try it and see how it works for you. If you want to come on board with Beam Minerals as a practitioner and you scan this QR code or go to this page, you can actually sign up for our onboarding process. And we'll explain a lot of things I just explained. We will explain how our affiliate practitioner program works. You have a chance to come and talk to me personally and ask more questions, ask more case studies, even. We do a lot of that. We have a robust practitioner program. And in that case, we're going to send you those 2 bottles for free. So those are your choices, those are your options. And I am open for any questions that we might have.
Well, that's great because we do have them lined up here. So we will start with the first one. The elderly commonly struggle with cellular hydration, sometimes needing diuretics to avoid pathogenic water retention. Have you seen B minerals restore balance of hydration without leading to fluid retention?
Yes, and I am a huge proponent of start low, go slow. And I always have my little glass dropper bottle here because I believe that 5 drops of electrolytes is already more than you were taking. So if we're starting with somebody who's already tending to hold on to fluid, who doesn't move a lot, who doesn't have good lymphatic flow, who may have solutes where they don't belong in all of her rivers and waters of her extracellular fluid and interstitial fluid, we start slowly. And so usually we start with just electrolytes, which is the fulvic, because fulvic goes into cells. And if it just gradually starts to bring that mineral replenishment to all the cells, and we don't upset the ecosystem too rapidly, we can kind of get around that problem of creating more edema. People who just grab the set and take a half cup of each, if they're prone to edema, they might see that worsen at first. So start low, go slow, ease into it, titrate up. The microboost is fulvic and it's detoxifying and it can bring more solutes into the interstitial and extracellular fluids. So if somebody's really prone to edema, we don't recommend bringing this in for 7 to 10 days until you've got some fulvic replenishing those cells.
Got it. Well, our next question, most doctors don't perform mineral tests. When you request one, they say you don't need it because there are no indicators of depletion despite the various elements we're experiencing. Can we take the test ourselves? If so, which labs and how often?
Yeah, I mean, I always say I was a Star Trek and a Star Wars kid, and in Star Trek, they always had that like scanner. So let me just ask you a question. Even if we had a scanner that could say your right calf muscle is currently missing potassium, how would we get it to the cells of that right calf muscle? Right. And so even if we knew exactly what minerals were missing in a particular set of cells, in a particular tissue, in a particular organ, in a particular system, how would we deliver it? The body has to do this itself. The problem with testing is it requires us to be detectives. We have to pair a typical two blood panels that our standard medical doctor might give us with a 3-month measurement from hair mineral analysis with an oligoscan, which is a spectrophotometry that looks at the only one that really looks in the cell and sees how your uptake is over a long period of time, but that still has to be interpreted. We could look at urine, but a chelation is going to force minerals out of tissues where they were stable and not in circulation. So it's also not a clear picture. So we have to play detective and at a start, like we know we're all depleted. We all used to drink out of rivers, streams, lakes, ponds. We all drank fulvic and humic mineral complexes from leaves and things decaying at the bottom of these sources of water. I don't recommend you do that today. I'm not going to drink out of my irrigation ditch. We have taken all of that out of our water. We are in a really special moment of human existence and our animals, our pets along with us, where we don't have fulvic and humic in our water anymore. And we always did. Water always had these things in it. And great, if you have a garden or you have a farm and you're going to pull stuff out of the ground, you're going to get it there. If you're composting and you're feeding your garden with that, you're going to get it there. But that is not the typical person. So we know we're starting with people that are depleted. It's almost, to me, I don't know if you call it faith. I just know we're depleted. So I know we need it. How much do we need? Well, let's just see how symptoms improve. And I think if we do this before we even do a full intake, with a lot of people, we don't have as much brain fog. We don't have as much thirst. We don't have as much dry skin. We don't have as much, I always said brain fog. So brain fog, obviously I haven't gotten mine yet this morning. All of these headaches, poor sleep, leg cramps, all the simple things can start to normalize, even things like PMS and perimenopause.
Well, the next question is, we know that CCK triggers the production of gastric acid, pancreatic enzymes, and gallbladder contractions. Which minerals are critical for CCK?
I don't know, but we could go. I mean, the ones I mentioned are critical for part of that, but I don't have a specific which minerals are involved in actually making that signal. But get on with me and we'll look it up and we'll talk about it. I love being challenged like that, and we're all growing and we're all learning. And these are the kinds of questions I love. The minerals I've mentioned are the ones that are by and large involved in the whole process of digestion and vagus nerve. But exactly which ones are for CCK, let's find out. Get on a call with
Okay.
me.
Well, next question. Can you please explain the importance of fulvic and how it impacts digestion?
Mm. So fulvic specifically delivers minerals directly into cells or to the receptors on cells that are leading to an organelle that needs that particular mineral. Fulvic is a shuttle, and it impacts digestion because it goes into the periphery in your bloodstream and goes to all your tissues. I think of fulvic, it comes to the intestinal tract from outside. But if I were to take fulvic in a solid form, like a powder, or if I were to take, a whole cap of this with no water, I'll probably get some fulvic in my digestive tract as well, where it is going to interact directly with my microbiome and maybe with the cells lining my intestinal tract if they're accessible. So the liquids, if you drink them straight like a shot, they can go into your gut and they can interact directly with your intestinal and microbial cells. If you add it to water and drink it slowly, more of it is going to gradually be slipping into your bloodstream. And then everywhere your blood goes, that fulvic is going to be going. And it has the random association of minerals attached to it from the plant layers that it came from millions of years ago. So fulvic is not, I think I had this misunderstanding for the longest time. It's not directly going with your food and your water and affecting digestion so much. It can help your microbiome for sure. But when it enters your bloodstream, it's replenishing your cells all over your body and affecting not just your digestion, which we talked about today, but everything, even brain function.
Well, the next question is, clients who've had duodenal switch weight loss surgery, how would we start them off?
Low and slow. Dropper bottle. Highly just recommend that they start with, you could say 1/8 of a teaspoon, or if you know that they're super sensitive or they just need to develop confidence when you start them on something. Like I said, I don't care if it's 5 drops in the water that they're drinking or whatever fluid that they are drinking. That's where we want to put it. We want them to be getting it in their water. That is a person, especially, we do not want straight, empty H2O, right? Oxygen and 2 hydrogens. It's a vessel. We want it to be carrying things into their body. And so if you're putting in distilled water, worst, deionized reverse osmosis water, if it is not remineralized, they are going to suffer even worse because they have this shortened, small intestine for absorption. So in fact, it's ideal in situations like that. But again, we start with electrolytes, fulvic. After 7 or 10 days, you can introduce microboost, slowly, drop by drop, and gradually increase, just watching, working with them one-on-one and watching how they're responding to it.
And you might have just answered the last question, but it said, for a healthy person, please clarify the titrate schedule and amount for both of your products.
For a healthy person, where we're trying to achieve, and you'll see this on the bottles, they both say that a half of a cap, which is a half an ounce of each of these together. You'll see a lot, on our website and social media of people just taking a shot of it, and you can do that. I just know that most of us are drinking filtered water because we have to, and I just feel that we all need it in our water. So I'm a huge proponent of it is in my water. It's in my water bottle. I'm always getting some fulvic, some humic, and the minerals that are attached to them. And so the minimum is a half a cap of each. And then you really stay there with the humic, with the micro boost. And electrolyze you use like you would every time you think, oh, I'm getting a headache, I'm going to take some magnesium. Oh, I have a leg cramp, I'm going to take some potassium. Oh, I just, went to the gym, I'm going to take some sodium. Like every time you think that, have a little more electrolytes. Just give it a month, 2 months, if you will, of reaching for electrolytes and adding it to your water when you think you want to treat whatever symptom you're having with a macro mineral individually dosed. Reach for electrolytes and replenish and rebalance, and then let's talk, because that really lets your cells do what they're trying to do and what they're programmed to do. And you're not inhibiting your cells from using other nutrients in your diet.
Does fulvic acid contain toxins?
No, it should not
Okay.
contain any toxins. Every single product that goes out to us that we buy as practitioners or that we recommend to our clients needs to have undergone microbial assay, certificate of analysis, and all of that. Right. So, and fulvic acid and humic acid have been produced in a different way. They're much more common in agriculture. They're much more common in animal feed. And we do see them in some supplements. They have just been produced using other elements. So they'll be produced with potassium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide, hydrochloric acid to alter pH to extract. And that leaves acid on one of them. And they require digestion. So they are not as good at getting around the digestive tract, but that doesn't mean that they're toxic, and it doesn't mean they're acidic. Okay. It's really all about the quality of the supplement. These will have, if you look at a certificate of analysis, they will have every single element that was present in the freshwater ecosystem, which would have been during the age of dinosaurs. At that time, all elements present are present in the certificate of analysis. And that's really important to know, because it's everything that's present on the Earth's crust and in a freshwater plant ecosystem. And probably, I always say, some dinosaurs and some dinosaur poop probably too is in there to help you remember.
Well, our
So do
audience
remember
wants
that-
to say thank you, Amber, because you are clearly very knowledgeable, and you would not believe how many people have written in to me and just saying thank you so much for making this clear and relevant and interesting, and how they would like to listen to it every day. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge with us. Another person says this was very informative. I appreciate your time. Just thank you again for joining us today. I mean, I know we all have to go, but I want to remind everyone that this presentation can be viewed via the link that they're going to receive via email later this week. And thank you so much for just being here today and sharing your wealth of knowledge with us, and always making it such an interesting topic. And you're such a great presenter, and we really appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I really hope to see some of you on my call list. So scan here and sign up, and let us educate you some more. Let's have conversations about case studies. Love it.
Okay. You have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye.
The information presented in this webinar is for educational purposes only. Please note that holistic nutrition professionals do not diagnose, prevent, treat, cure, prescribe, manage, or heal diseases or medical conditions. They are also not licensed in any state and work with clients, not patients. There are no continuing education credits associated with this webinar.